All right, good evening, everybody. We will go ahead and get started. Is the Zoom running? We're good to go. Good evening. I am Councilmember Jonathan Nusma, chairing Planning and Development. Today is Monday, June 12th, 2023. I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:47 p.m. And just a heads up for members of the committee and members of the public that item P2 has been removed from the agenda this evening. This is the item regarding the planned development for the daycare center at 3434 Central Street. That item has been removed at the request of the applicant. We will not be considering it from the dais. If there's anybody who wishes to speak to that item during public comment, you are more than welcome to do so. It will also not be at council either, since it has not been, since it is not on the committee agenda. So let's continue with approval of the minutes of our last meeting. If somebody would like, I'm sorry. Before we do that, let's take a roll call.
Yes. All right. Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Harkaris.
Here.
Councilmember Ravel.
Here.
Councilmember Burns. Councilmember Wynn. Councilmember Kelly. Here. Councilmember Nusma.
All right. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
So let's continue with approval of the minutes from last time. Somebody could make that motion?
I'll move approval. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Hadikatis, that we approve the minutes of our meeting from May 8th, 2023. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes are approved, which brings us to public comment. We have at least 5 folks signed up, but we have less than 22 folks signed up, so each speaker will get 2 minutes each. And we are going to start with Larry Roffel, and then Brian Mahoney, and Viamara Chambers.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Roffel, please.
Thank you. I'm speaking to Kensington School, but I figured since I'm here, I might as well speak. It might come back sometime so that I can say everything I forgot to say tonight. My name is Larry Raffel. I live at 3509 Central Street in Evanston. I'm a 32-year resident of Evanston. I've served on the Plan Commission and the Park Board, and I'm also a landscape architect and planner with 40 years of experience working strictly for municipalities. But I'm here to talk about Kensington Schools and my objection to this project. The development is totally inappropriate for the site from a site planning point of view and from architecture, from size. There's residentials on all 4 sides. We have small mid-century homes throughout the neighborhood, and this is a large brown brick development, a rectangular building on a triangular site. And I could tell you, because they've had to make so many different types of regulations to the access and exits to this property, it's just completely inappropriate. We live at probably the most dangerous intersection at Evanston, at Grosse Pointe, Crawford, and Central. I could tell you I was in a taxi that was totaled sending my family to the hospital not that long ago. And what this developer is trying to do is add more traffic there, but because of all the restrictions, they've got a number of different bizarre entrances and exits to the site. Right in, right out on Grosse Pointe, left in, right out on Central Street. And because we only have a 30-inch carriage walk, we walk our dogs, we walk our strollers, everything in the street. And the church never came to us to talk about what might be appropriate for the site. If they had, we could figure out something that would be a fit for the site. The developer is really, I'm sorry. You know what? I'd like to be able to say more. 2 minutes is certainly not enough time. But for the safety of our children and our families there, I really urge the committee and the council, when it comes before you, to deny this application. I'm really pleased with my heart on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Brian Mahoney, then Viamara Chambers, and then Raditza Suits.
First, I want to thank everyone today for listening to me. I submitted written comments. I believe they were circulated. They're extensive. I won't go over them in detail. I just want to highlight a few points. Number one, the application is legally deficient. The applicant does not have a legal or equitable interest in the property. The form itself allows for a situation where someone is selling the property and they want the actual developer or builder to handle that process, and it would be the owner of the property is the applicant, and then they do a designation process. For whatever reason, they didn't do that here. It's an insufficient application. The applicant is not legally, doesn't have standing, or Evanston's own rules. Number two, notice at several stages, but most importantly at the last Land Use Commission, which didn't recommend approval, but nonetheless was deficient. The city has been inserting the phrase PIN, Property Identification Network, into its notice provisions. That's not what the law says. It's plain language. You have to notify property owners. They've decided they can delegate that to a certain person based on a property identification number. That's not in the statute. The city does not have authority to ignore the statute. Number three, we're in sort of a crazy world where topsy-turvy land, where we're being told this won't proceed unless there's an agreement on the easement that inures to the benefit of the co-op. And yet they keep saying it won't proceed, yet it keeps on proceeding from the next step, from one commission to the Land Use Commission, now to the City Council. So it doesn't make any sense that the matter's proceeding, but we keep being told it won't proceed. Secondly, as the gentleman just here spoke, it's a terrible safety issue. I quoted in my comments a comment made that's on the record by one of the commissioners of the Land Use Commission. He called that intersection a six-headed monster. That was his term. It wasn't the term of any of the neighbors to the north, south, east, or west, all of whom are opposed. And he said that's a very congested, he said he drives it every day. He knows how congested it is. He knows it's dangerous, and he said it's a six-headed monster. So again, for the safety of the neighbors, all of whom are opposed, I understand the church may be a sympathetic seller, but you have to understand all the other citizens, and especially the co-op, are opposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Via Mara Chambers, Raditza Suits, and Todd Smith.
Hello. I'm going to speak on both, on the daycare and the church in Darrow. I just wanted to say for the daycare that the same reasons you guys are complaining about that you guys have brought up are the same reasons we brought up for our building, and it passed. So good luck with that. This land, talking about Church in Darrow, this land has been vacant for over 20 years. Why didn't the city develop it during that time? This wouldn't have remained empty in another ward. Yes, I know HODC tried to develop this land over 10 years ago, and the neighbors shut it down. So why give the land to the same organization the neighborhood didn't want to work with in the first place? This pastor has publicly stated that he has no money to build this church. So why would he swap his land, his church? Yes, his church is not perfect, but at least there's a structure standing there for an empty land the city deemed too expensive to clean, and he has no money. Will this remain empty in the end? It probably will. Thank you.
Next up is Todd Smith, which will be our, after Raditza, then Todd Smith, and then we have nobody else in person. Then we have one more in person, sorry.
Hi, I spoke extensively about this over several months, and again, I'm bringing it up again. $4 million of our taxpayers' money, handing it over to a corporation that their investors are going to make huge profits, is a scam. Units that cost over $500,000 is a scam. It's not affordable housing. So we all want affordable housing. We don't want this. We don't want our commercial spot to be taken and replaced with building of this kind. We are for affordable housing. We also finding this is supportive housing with absolutely nothing that is prepared and ready to handle the people with variety of special needs, that they need mental health care professionals, that they need doctors, that they need different security on the place. Who's certifying the cost of these units? I have extensively looked into this on a national level. This program on a national level is not working. It benefits rich people. It does not benefit us. Furthermore, my neighbor, Vince, who has provided affordable housing for 40 years, has been taken to court. He does not have money for tuck pointing and roof. There is no money here for people like that who have for 4 decades or more provided affordable housing. I have also said, we have been here small landlords in 5th Ward who have provided housing, for connections for the homeless. And they came against us to throw us under the bus, to hand over $4 million to their friends. If this is not a
15
scam,
seconds.
I don't know what is. Thank you.
Thank you. Todd Smith, followed by Mr. Sutton, and is there anybody else in the room than Sue?
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Smith. I'm a Fifth Ward resident. I'm here to speak on the Church and Darrow building. I'm all for affordable housing through Evanston. However, with that stated, I'm looking to have more scattered site housing. I'm not looking to have concentrated housing at that location because concentrated housing has been shown not to be beneficial to those that live in there. In addition to that, the site is not suitable, as we understand it, to be built for residential use right now because of the EPA issues that have not been solidified at this point in time. In addition to that, I don't believe a financial feasibility study has been done by the city, and therefore the project from a church perspective should not go forward. In addition, there are 14 variances that have been requested. Never before has anything been approved from the city standpoint with 14 variations, okay? In addition, I would say the Fifth Ward has enough low income in that area. So I'm all for low-income housing, but let's propagate that to other wards. The development of this project that I've checked with several developers is over twice the cost for developing this same type of unit. So other developers are saying it can be done for less than half that. The other issue that we have is on-site security. This building has to be secured. I mean, having that number of residents and not having a 24-hour security in there is havoc. Next issue I would say is Section 8 will pay, and we have validated this and have this in writing from Section 8. They will pay standard pricing. We keep saying it's going to get lower pricing, but they have
15
fixed
seconds.
prices for Section 8, whether it's a 2 or 3 bedroom. They will not alter that pricing schema. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Carla Sutton, followed by Sue Lobach, and if there's nobody else in the room, then we'll go to online. Mr. Sutton.
Thank you. Zoning is how the local government regulates and develops land within its control. It is broken down into multiple categories to help balance a city to ensure proper land use and provide value to citizens that own property. I stand here this evening as a long member of Fifth Ward taxpayers on Darrow Avenue. The Darrow Church Street project is problematic for the following reasons. What is the purpose of having zoning and procedures for committees like land use when council members and members of the committee summarily disregard our concerns? I would not be questioning the integrity of these bodies if they pretended to be providing a service, but they do not respect the citizens and change the rules and regulations at a whim with no justification. We are bound by rules. Why aren't you? And regulations. We have observed you approve a development with many variants. Previously, in this same situation, it would have been remanded for substantial variations back to the Land Use Committee. You approve agreements that are not in writing, and you refuse to clean the contaminated soil beneath this project, which is endangering environmental concerns to my community. The Land Use Committee did not even follow their own procedures when evaluating a proposed development. How are these involved parties seeking changes on land they don't even own? The financing doesn't provide for attaining generational wealth to my community that has been hit hard by gentrification. At least you should have discussed the amount of money wasted on this development
15 seconds,
instead of providing ownership for Fifth Ward residents who have already enough housing programs but need programs on attaining generational wealth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. Next up is Sue Lobach. And after Sue, we have online Jeff Bushore and Haley Guyon.
Hi, I'm Sue Lolbach with Connections for the Homeless, and I'm speaking in favor of the HODC building and the purchase of land. First, this has already been basically litigated in earlier meetings. This is just about the actual execution of what was approved. Second, in terms of how much this costs, this project is right in line with how much it costs to develop housing. It is almost impossible to develop a new unit of housing for under $350,000. So this is perfectly normal, and I think it is unreasonable to expect a new building to be built for less. In terms of needing more affordable housing, we need more affordable housing all over the city, including in the 5th Ward. If you look at the E-Plan, there are many, many people in the 5th Ward who do not have housing that they can afford. So even though there is some affordable housing in the 5th Ward, given the people who live there, there's not enough. So we are strongly in favor of this project and hope you will approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to go to Zoom comments. If there's nobody else in the room, one final check. Okay, going to Zoom, starting with Jeffrey Bouchard.
Hello. Good evening, Chairman and committee members. I would like to comment on Ordinance 51-0-53. My name is Jeffrey Bouchard. I live in the 3rd Ward at 318 Dempster, directly across the street from the Claridge apartment building at 319 Dempster. For the past 2 years, we, the neighbors, have been working with the city and HODC, the management company, to improve the living conditions at the Claridge. The neighbors have a meeting tomorrow night with both the chairman and the director of HODC, along with alderpersons Melissa Wynn and Claire Kelly, to resolve the many issues which are upsetting the tenants and neighbors. The latest incident being the street brawl on Tuesday, May 23rd, which Melissa Wynn and I witnessed. It took over a dozen police officers, medics, and firemen to resolve this conflict. I'm asking you to please put a hold on passing Ordinance 51-0-53 in the P&D committee meeting until there is evidence that HODC has demonstrated a permanent plan which will improve the living conditions at 319 Dempster and thus benefit the tenants and neighbors. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. And our last speaker is Haley Guyon.
Good evening, Planning and Development Committee. Thank you. Haley Guyon. I'm speaking on behalf of Crosby Theodore LLC, a legal stakeholder, regarding item P1 on the agenda. Authorizing the sale of city-owned real estate to HODC. We would ask that the committee recommend this not be adopted to City Council. The city has improperly granted zoning relief to both HODC and Mount Pisgah, a religious organization, to allow for a mixed-use development with 33 units of affordable housing and an ill-conceived church development. The city committed reversible error when it approved of the major variations on these properties, to the detriment of many legal stakeholders, ourselves included. Thus, any decision or recommendation approving the sale of these properties based on the validity of these variations is impermissible and should have no effect. There are solutions available today to ensure legal stakeholders are not harmed by this continued reversible error. Those have gone ignored or otherwise not entertained. We have asked for the enforcement of the provisions of the Evanston's current ordinances in effect, and the city has not followed them. We have also asked for basic questions, answers to basic questions about the timing, the plans, the funding for the development, both by HODC and Mount Pisgah, and they have not been provided. We wonder what conditions could be attached to the sale to ensure the corner lot does not remain empty in the event Mount Pisgah is unable to develop it. So we would also ask the committee to consider that opportunity here as well before referring it to City Council.
15 seconds.
Thank you, Chair. The Historic Preservation Commission will not be involved in the conditions on the sale despite an adjoining historic landmark. And in summary, the city has not followed the letter of the zoning code as it exists today, but instead has focused on a non-existent interpretation of the
If you
zoning
could wrap
code
up, please.
to fit within the needs of this development and this sale to, again, the detriment of legal stakeholders. So for these reasons, we ask that the committee recommend this item not be adopted to city council or put in conditions that would ameliorate the detrimental effect of a legal stakeholder here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guyan. Is there anybody else online or in the room who wishes to make a public comment? Seeing none, let's continue with our agenda for the evening. And again, we have removed item P2 from the agenda, which leaves us with only one item, P1. And let's keep in mind that council is scheduled to start at 6:45. So I hope we can wrap it up with a few minutes to spare. If somebody would like to make a motion on item P1.
I'll move item P1. Sorry. Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Reed, seconded by Councilmember Harris, that we approve ordinance 51-0-23, authorizing the sale of city-owned real property at 1805 Church Street, 1708 Darrow Avenue, and 1710 Darrow Avenue. And I understand that staff has a real short presentation just to remind us what we'll be voting on here.
We do, and if it can be pulled up, it should be on the. Yep. And if I could. Thank you. Quick background. This project goes back for quite a while. The city issued an RFQ in 2020. There was discussion, and the project was awarded to a joint venture between Mount Pisgah and Housing Opportunity Development Corporation. In actually developing the buildings and to comply to the best of our ability with the West Evanston Master Plan and Zoning Overlay, the church and the housing development are flip-flopped from the city's land, which is on the corner of Church and Darrow, and with Mount Pisgah's, which is on the interior of the block. Both of these developments, HODC's development and Mount Pisgah's, were approved by City Council on April 10th. And this is the implementation of the sale of that property. And there are actually 3 transactions that implement the sale, which is in effect a donation of the property to HODC, which will generate Illinois affordable housing tax credits that help fund the development. Those are the lots from an aerial view. The right-hand lower part is one parcel, that's 1805 Church. The 2 immediately to the top are the Darrow properties, and the 2 to the left are Mount Pisgah's properties. So this is how it looks when you draw it out in colors to show what property is owned by whom. Mount Pisgah's property is shown in blue, the city's is in red. They're not the same size. Mount Pisgah's is about 75 feet wide. The city's is an additional lot wider than that. So what the way this will be implemented is 2 parcels of land will be swapped, in essence, between the city and Mount Pisgah. Mount Pisgah's property is shown in the kind of orange color on left, and the city's and part of the city's land that will be swapped is the purple on the right. Those parcels are both 75 feet wide. There is a center parcel, which is the city's, which the city will retain. After the swap of the properties, which again, it will be a sale for $1 each way, Mount Pisgah's property will be the blue parcel on the right, and the city's land will be the red parcels on the left, those parcels are the exact same size as the initial parcels. Then the actual sale of the land to HODC for that red portion will be for $1 to generate the donation tax credits. So that's the actual transactions that will take place. There are draft sale agreements in the packet for your consideration. They are not final, but they give you the background of it. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Flax. So keeping in mind that we are discussing and we'll be voting on only the land transaction here tonight, I will open it up for comments and questions from committee members, starting with Councilmember Burns.
Just wanted to ask my colleagues to not hold this tonight and to not support or to not support a table, to not motion for a table. This is this item is in particular is for introduction today, and will go on to the 26th, if approved through this committee and council for action. And we have time in between to try to, work out an improvement plan that both the tenants of 1319 Dempster and HODC and members of the community living in the immediate area can work out. If for those who've been following this discussion, when this body, this committee, along with council, approved the development that was brought to us by the Land Use Commission, the Land Use Commission recommended approval of the project. I made an amendment requiring HODC to work with the parties that I just named to develop an improvement plan. And so I would hope we don't have to rehash that tonight. The amendment was made, it was voted on, the direction was given, and nothing has changed since then. In that my understanding is they're working through it. There's a meeting tomorrow. Let's let that play out, move this on to the 26th, and see what they can come up with. And I'll hold their chair. I may have other comments depending on what is said. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody else? Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you. Yeah, I very much want to support this. We do need more affordable housing, but I also agree. I would like to see us moving forward with mixed income buildings at this point. But so I do have concerns. I have the same concerns I think that the LUC expressed with regard to the financial feasibility of the construction on that lot. And I do wonder if, in the event that I'm not, I will consider not holding this tonight, but I nevertheless would like to explore the option of what happens if that lot remains empty, and because of issues around financial viability to build, if there's any way that can revert back to the city. I'd hate to see the city give away a lot and then end up with an empty lot that we now don't own. But of course, my main concern, being a First Ward council member, is about the HODC building on the Claridge at Dempster, and I am grateful to both the chair of the HODC board and Richard Koenig for agreeing to meet with the neighbors and myself and Councilmember Wynn tomorrow evening to discuss ways to improve permanent ways, lasting ways, improvements for 319 Dempster. I hope and expect that we'll get some formal agreements on ways to implement, again, permanent, lasting improvements, and we'll come forward with some proposals. I will feel much more comfortable about supporting this and final action once those are in hand. So we need to have some commitment to on-site management. We have some now, and that has improved the quality of living, but we need, a firm commitment going forward that's funded by HODC, a plan where, HODC leadership will meet with tenants to hear concerns, as well as surrounding neighbors, at least on an annual basis, and others. So I look forward to supporting this, providing that we do get some sort of formal written agreement on some of these really essential fronts. We'd like to see a significant reduction in police and fire calls there. So we feel that if most of these measures are implemented, we will in fact see a significant reduction in our police and fire calls, where there's hundreds and over the years. I think that's about it for now. And I did have a question. I know in the original, this plan got started with the former city council term, and I wonder if you could tell me, I know it said that this lot, the sale of this public property, it said would be sold to an entity to be created by Mount Pisgah Ministry Incorporated and the Housing Opportunity Development Corporation. So was there an entity created by these two as stated in Ordinance 4-0-21? There was no entity, there was an entity created.
Because the two developments are actually physically separate, it was unnecessary to have an agreement of that kind because it was not joined. By keeping them separate, it makes it very clear in the way the property is transferred that one of the concerns that some people have raised is that Mount Pisgah is getting direct support from the city for their development, which is absolutely not true. Mount Pisgah has always done all of its development on its own, both at its current church and also it acquired the parcel immediately east. All of that they've done on their own, and they have never asked the city for any money. They even paid the demolition fee for the house they tore down. So I think that although they may not have all their financing in place at this time, we have numerous other properties throughout the city that we have people who have made plans but have not provided financing for how they're going to proceed with that in advance of approval.
Thank you. So I'm just, because this refers to ordinance 4-0-21, where it says that the two entities would create, that Mount Pisgah and HODC would create an entity that the city would then.
And in the MOU, it said that that was the preliminary plan, but it had to be, it could be adjusted depending on the actual development proposal.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have made that clear.
I'm going to recognize Deputy City Attorney Ruggie, who was asked to weigh in here.
Thank you, Councilmember Newsma, members of the Planning and Development Committee. I believe when that ordinance was passed as well, I think at that time we didn't realize that the church had to go on the corner. So there was just a lot of changes made when they decided that the landmark building should go on the corner. And so that's why the changes were made, and that's why we've moved forward in this way.
Thank you. And that is a bit of my concern, that this is significantly different than what the ordinance that we're basing it on. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I also feel that for that corner lot, if you're going to have units, that's the ideal place for the units, is on the corner where you get much more light. So all of this also concerns me, that we would instead move the living units into the middle, wedge between buildings, and leave the corner lot for a potential church. So again, I hope to support this going forward. I hope that we can see really firm agreements worked out with HODC leadership to ensure a higher quality and more safe living arrangement for the residents and for the tenants at 319 Dempster. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to weigh in? Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. I am supportive of this land swap. I do think some of the concerns that Councilmember Kelly is raising are worth consideration for policy changes in the future. I do think that there is value to ensuring that, particularly if any city finances are involved, and really not particularly, really only if city finances or city land is involved, that someone receiving money from the city or receiving land from the city would have to demonstrate a financial ability to complete a project. That completely makes sense to me. Also, I do think that also it's worth us looking at holding on to some of our land. I'm fine here. This makes sense, the swap for the church and the But I do think in the future, again, policy change, I'm happy to maybe support a referral or something along those lines, that we should make an effort to hold on to our city assets and maybe look toward models where we're engaging in long-term leases that amount to a similar cost for someone who wants to use city land, but where possible, if we can hold on to some of our land to create potential opportunity in the future, I think that's worth it. And so I'll hold there, and happy to support this both here and at council.
Thank you, Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Burns with 3 minutes and 43 seconds remaining.
I won't need it all. I just wanted to make clear that the church is just getting land that they already own in a different location. I just want to make that very clear. So the example that was just provided does not really apply to this situation because the church owns land currently. We're just asking them as part of this deal to, and they've agreed to it obviously, to now own land next to it of the same size and vacant land that has nothing on it. So it's really up to them to raise the funds to develop it. But I just want to be clear. HODC, we understand exactly where they're getting a majority of their funding, and it is not uncommon when a project of this size gets low-income tax credits from the federal government that the local municipality, especially one that has said for the last two administrations that affordable housing is a top priority, would then kick in funding to see the project through. While I'm on this note, because someone mentioned investors, there are no investors of HODC or the church. These are nonprofits. What they're talking about is just the system of low-income tax credits, that there are investors that buy low-income tax credits that allow for affordable housing projects to occur. So much so that 90%, I believe is the number, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, of the affordable housing in this country is done in this way. And so if there is this grand conspiracy, the whole government is in on it, and you probably need to be addressing another body and not this one. But I just wanted to just make it clear. We understand where the funding is coming from HODC. They've gone out and done the work to secure funding, and they're asking us to do what is very common for the local municipality to kick in so that we can provide affordable housing here in Evanston. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Burns. Seeing no further requests to be recognized, I will ask for a roll call vote on item P1. And again, this is for introduction.
Councilmember Reed?
For action here at this committee, introduction and council. Aye.
Councilmember Harakaris?
Aye.
Councilmember Bell?
Aye.
Councilmember Burns?
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn?
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly?
No.
Councilmember Nusma?
Aye. The motion carries by a vote of 6-1. If there are no additional items for discussion, seeing no further business to come before this committee, I will declare this meeting adjourned at 6:25 and see everybody back here in 20 minutes for council.